once saw on the internet something that said that buying books and reading books are two different hobbies, and I 100% agree with that because I love to buy books, and I've read some of these books I'm going to show you, but I definitely have not read all of them. So that being said, let's take a look at some of my nonfiction books. You may have heard me say this before, but I love gnomes. This is a used book that I found at a used bookstore. It's an older book by Thomas Kitely, The World Guide to Gnomes, Fairies, Elves, and Other Little People. So we'll go in here and take a look. You can see at some point this was $20. I don't remember how much I spent on this. It's been a little while since I bought it. But we'll take a look here. So it was originally published in 1880, so that's a long time ago. This is obviously a reprint. This exact book is not from 1880. But look at that great picture. Appears to be a giant, some little people, a dragon. Very interesting. So again, this is not one that I have read all of, but I have flipped through it and looked at some of the things in it. So you can see it's written about different fictional characters based on different areas, and then there's stories. So there's something about Iceland, there's pictures of some mermaids, there's something about a changeling, the girl at the troll dance, so something about trolls. This is from Scandinavia. You can see there was one here, this is from Wales. Here's England. So there's lots of little stories and folklore and mythology about fairies and gnomes and different characters like that. So I just think that is really neat. So jumping in a totally different direction here. This is The Office BFFs from Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey. I love The Office. My husband and I both love the show. We blame the show on us getting married, so to age myself a little bit, we were watching the show when it was on television originally when we were dating, and we would make time every Thursday to set aside time, and I would go over to my husband's apartment and we would watch The Office together. So we always said that The Office is one of the reasons we got married because we hung out specifically to watch The Office, and our friendship turned into a marriage. So, Tales of the Office from Two Best Friends. So someday I will read this. Okay, going in even another direction. This is a book called The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher by Kate Summerscale. The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher. So this is a true crime story about a Victorian crime that happened in the Victorian era. So I listened to a podcast called She Done It. It is probably one of my favorite podcasts of all time. And it is all about Golden Age detection books, mystery books, and she also talks a lot about true crime from those eras and true crime stories that inspired a lot of the books of the period. And this is one of the stories that inspired a lot of books from the Golden Age of detective fiction. I again have not read this yet, but it's supposed to be excellent. I did listen to the episode of She Done It where they talked about this crime that they're talking about, and it was very interesting. So this talks not only about the crime but about the actual detective who followed the case and who was the one who was trying to figure out who did it. So it should be very, very interesting. I think Kate Summerscale has written other true crime books as well. Now, along the same lines, I also have this, which I also have not read yet, called The Science of Murder, The Forensics of Agatha Christie. So I love Agatha Christie, and I love things about forensic science, so this was right up my alley. The only thing I'm worried about with this book is I'm a little bit afraid that it's going to spoil some of the books for me, some of the Agatha Christie's that I haven't read yet. So I'm hoping that that is not the case. But this talks about discovering the science of forensics through Agatha Christie's novels. So it talks a lot about the forensics of her tales. Oh, also I will mention She Done It again, the podcast She Done It, because Carla Valentine is a guest on the podcast, which is where I heard about this book. She's a guest on a couple of episodes, I think. So again, along those same lines, I have this book called Working Stiff, 2 Years, 262 Bodies, and the Making of a Medical Examiner. Now, I've only read half of this book, but the half I read, I really enjoyed, and someday I will go back to it. Again, if you like forensics and you like watching shows like NCIS or things where they do talk a lot about detection and forensics, this was really interesting because it's written by a medical examiner, and she talks all about her work and how she does the things that she does. Next, switching gears a little bit, is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Creative Living Beyond Fear. This is one of the best nonfiction, kind of self-helpy type books I've ever read. I really, really, really love this book, and I think a lot of people do. I've only read one of Elizabeth Gilbert's fiction books, and it was actually not Eat, Pray, Love. And so her fiction is good. I liked the book, but her nonfiction I think is even better. Like, this was just a really inspiring and spectacular read. So if you are looking for encouragement around creativity and just how to create, and you can see, I think she shares her own generative process and her wisdom and perspective on creativity. It's just very, very good and very inspiring, and I do highly, highly recommend Big Magic. Okay, this is another one that I have not read, but I'm very much looking forward to, and that is Taste My Life Through Food by Stanley Tucci. So I like Stanley Tucci as an actor very much. a video showing you a lot of my different cookbooks. I have a lot of cookbooks as well. So here is a new book. We're kind of in the celebrity theme now. So here is a book by Tom Felton called Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard. So those of you who may not know, Tom Felton was Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter films. I really enjoy the Harry Potter books and movie series. And so I read this book about Tom, and he wrote it himself, and it's very interesting. I did really enjoy hearing his stories about the Harry Potter experience, but also really just enjoyed reading about his life. That was as much or more interesting than the Harry Potter stuff. Just very interesting, his story and the things that he talks about. There's some pictures of him and things throughout the book. But yeah, it's just really, really interesting. So if you like Harry Potter at all, or just interested kind of in how someone who grew up on film sets, how they kind of lived their life, I would highly recommend this one. Speaking of actors, again, I also have this Madly, Deeply, The Diaries of Alan Rickman. So this was put out after Alan Rickman passed away. I have not read this one yet, but I am very much looking forward to it. He is also in Harry Potter as Professor Snape, but he is also known for many, many other things as well. He is an incredible actor, I think. So you can see some of the book here. These are actually his handwritten diaries, and they've obviously converted that over into print, but there are some pages of the diaries, and it really literally is diaries, so you can see dates and times, and as he's just walking through his life. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to dig into this at some point. He is one of my favorite actors, and I think he's really good in everything he does. And I've always heard lovely things about him, so I'm looking forward to reading this at some point. Okay, still on the theme of movies, this is a refocus. This is a book series. This one is specifically about the films of Elaine May. So this is edited by Alexandra Heller Nicholas and Dean Brandom. So Elaine May is a film director and actor, and I bought this book after seeing her film A New Leaf, which my husband and I both absolutely fell in love with. So if you haven't seen any of her films, I definitely recommend A New Leaf. She's only directed a few. I think she's directed 4 films. She directed Ishtar, Mikey and Nikki, A New Leaf, and I think there's one more, The Heartbreak Kid. I feel like maybe is it? It may say on the back here. Oh yes, there we go. A New Leaf, The Heartbreak Kid, Mikey and Nikki, and Ishtar. And A New Leaf was just spectacular, and so I wanted to learn more about her and her life and her movies, and so I bought this book. I have read a little bit at the beginning and loved what I read so far, so I am looking forward to finishing this at some point. One thing I want to do is actually watch the movies first and then go back and read this book. So I am waiting until I've seen the other 3 films to go back and read more about her. Just very, very excited about it. She's very interesting, and I loved A New Leaf. If you ever get a chance to check that out, please do. Okay, we're gonna go with movies from here on out. So next is Elvira, Yours Cruelly, Elvira. Memoirs of the Mistress of the Dark. So my husband and I, we both love horror movies, and Elvira, who her real name is Cassandra Peterson, is obviously an icon of horror movies, and being a horror host. So I bought this book. I haven't read it yet, but to learn more about her life and just about her life Next, this is a really, really great book called Monster, She Wrote: The Women Who Pioneered Horror and Speculative Fiction. It's by Lisa Croker and Melanie R. Anderson. This is a wonderful book and I absolutely loved it. I have read this, and it is a book about women in horror, women who write horror novels and stories. And so it really goes through, and each section is on a specific author. So you can see it's very easy to just pick up and read a little bit and put down, because there are little sections, and then they split them up into different examples. So this one is haunting tales. They split them up into sections, and then go through and talk about different women in time who were writing in these kinds of areas. So very interesting. I discovered a lot of new people that I wanted to read. I got a really big TBR list out of this things that I wanted to find and people I wanted to hunt down. And also it helps me as I'm, in used bookstores and things. I can remember, oh yeah, I remember reading about Marjorie Lawrence in this book, and so if I see something by her, I'm much more likely to pick it up. So this is just a really good book if you want to know more about women writers who write in the horror genre. And it's, I said, easy to pick up because there's just these little sections about lots of different women, and it's just a really great book. Obviously it's well put together as well. It's just really pretty. So highly recommend this book. I think Lisa and Melanie also have a podcast called Monster, She Wrote, where they talk about women writers, and I think they also talk about movies and adaptations with female horror as well. But definitely recommend this if you're interested in women writers who write horror and speculative fiction. And the last book I'm going to show you today is maybe my favorite nonfiction book of all time, and that is The Lady from the Black Lagoon by Mallory O'Meara. So this is all about Millicent Patrick, who was a makeup artist in old school Hollywood. So she is, according to Mallory, is credited for creating the creature from the Black Lagoon, and is a very interesting look at Millicent's life and how she got where she was. And I highly recommend this book if you're interested in horror or Hollywood, old Hollywood, classic Hollywood, or if you're just interested in from a female's perspective, how a woman climbed to where she did, and also everything that kind of went into that. So it was just very interesting, and I really enjoyed it. Again, I would highly recommend this book. Okay, so that's everything I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me and listening. If you have any book recommendations of your own nonfiction that you've really enjoyed, especially around kind of these topics that I've shared with you that I enjoy, movies and mysteries, and some biographies, please let me know what those recommendations are. And if you have any recommendations for other ASMR videos you'd like to see, please drop those in the comments as well. Thank you so much, and I hope that